is Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski. Here now, Tony Brueski.
You build a brand on innocence. You build a following on trust, and in the span of 3 days, it all disintegrates. That's the story of what's going on right now with the allegations against Michael David Booth, a man who called himself Mr. Crafty Pants. A smiling, upbeat YouTube influencer from the suburbs of Louisville, Kentucky. He wasn't controversial. He wasn't political. He wasn't edgy. He was safe, or at least that's what people thought. If the allegations against him are true, then he's anything but. But again, they are allegations right now. He made DIY crafts, glitter projects, home decor tutorials. He taught people how to cut vinyl, make mugs, design t-shirts with cute slogans. He had hundreds of thousands of followers. He loved that comfort zone content, the type of videos you could play with your kids in the room. He was the friendly face of creativity, approachable, clean-cut, and polite. But in early August, police say that same man was also online under a very different light, sharing graphic videos of children. Yeah, those type of videos. And not just teenagers, children under the age of 12. According to prosecutors, Booth wasn't caught by accident. The case started the way most of these cases do, quietly, digitally, with a traceable footprint left behind. Kik, the messaging app known for being both popular with teens and notorious for its dark underbelly, flagged an account sharing the CSAM material. The account was reported to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, better known as NCMEC, which handles cyber tip line reports from platforms all over the world. From there, investigators followed the unusual chain. NCMEC sent the report to Kentucky's Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, and they subpoenaed Kik for account logs, IP addresses, timestamps, session data. Then they subpoenaed the internet service provider connected to that IP. It traced back to a single residence in Norton Commons, a tidy, affluent neighborhood in Prospect, Kentucky. The subscriber, Michael David Booth, allegedly. When investigators compared the Kik account data, they didn't just find the illegal files. They found photos of Booth himself, allegedly. Selfie-type images, according to the affidavit, that left little room for ambiguity. This wasn't a hacker using someone else's Wi-Fi. It wasn't a neighbor hijacking a signal. The account matched his name, his image, and his home, allegedly. The files allegedly shared between August 4th and August 7th included 6 confirmed videos or images depicting minors engaged in 3 were under the age of 12, 3 between 12 and 17. Investigators say those files were shared multiple times. 12 shares for the youngest victim, about 15 for the older ones. It's not a misunderstanding, it's a pattern, if these allegations are true and hold up. By October, warrants were issued. Detectives moved in. Booth's home was searched. Devices were seized. He was arrested on charges and charged with multiple counts of possession and distribution of matter portraying that. Charges that in Kentucky can easily stack into double-digit felony counts. When he appeared in Jefferson County District Court, the man who once taught people how to emboss glitter onto cardstock stood in a jumpsuit and shackles, quietly pleading not guilty. His bond was set at $100,000 cash. The court ordered him to stay offline. No social media, no internet, and if he were to post bond, he'd be confined to his home. It's not unusual for judges to impose those sort of restrictions in CSAM cases. The internet isn't just the crime scene, it's the weapon. Cutting off access is standard, but the shock didn't come from the courtroom, it came from the neighborhood. In North Commons, residents woke up to police cars parked outside a house that looked like any other. Parents whispered, kids asked questions, and every neighbor had the same thought. He seems so normal. That phrase, he seems so normal, it's become the tragic refrain of the digital age, has it not? Because that's how predators survive now. They don't lurk in dark corners of the internet anymore. Well, they do, but they're also in the open. They blend into the background of everyday life. They become the PTA dad, the youth coach, the friendly guy on YouTube who teaches crafts. They build brands around likability because the friendlier the image, the easier it is to hide behind it. Booth's content wasn't edgy or explicit. It was aggressively wholesome. That's what made him marketable. That's what made him trustworthy. And that's what makes these charges, if proven, so chilling. Because they dismantled the illusion that family-friendly automatically means safe. Now, in Kentucky law, these crimes are defined under several different statutes, two different ones. The first covers possession or viewing of matter portraying a performance, and I say that in air quotes. This is how it's worded by a minor. The second covers distribution of that material. The difference matters because prosecution is about having, or possession rather, is about having the files. Knowingly storing them, distribution is about sharing them, intentionally or recklessly with others. For minors under 18, possession is a Class D felony, punishable by up to 5 years. Distribution is a Class C felony, punishable by up to 5 to 10. But when the victims are under 12, those penalties jump. Possession becomes Class C, and distribution becomes Class B, carrying 10 to 20 years. Multiply that by several counts, and Booth could be looking at decades in prison if convicted. The defense, of course, will try to chip away at the chain of evidence. They'll argue technicalities. Was the IP address correctly linked to him? Could the account have been spoofed? Were the warrants properly executed? Did investigators overstep by viewing the files before securing a search warrant? Every pixel and packet of data will be scrutinized. But if the selfie connection holds, if the metadata lines up and the devices match the activity, those defenses kind of collapse quickly. Digital forensics is brutal in its precision. It doesn't rely on witness memory or emotional testimony. It relies on timestamps, hashtags, IP routing, storage logs. When the evidence converges, there really is nowhere to hide. The data is the data. But that's why they're going to look at it. That's why they have to be so sure on things like this. And that's what makes the story more than just another influencer gone bad headline. It's a cautionary tale about how exposure and technology intersect, about how the same tools that make people famous can also make them vulnerable to discovery when they cross the line. It's also a story about the power of parasocial relationships. Booth's followers didn't just watch him, they felt like they knew him. They called him inspiring. They thanked him for helping them through rough days, for bringing joy to their homes. When he smiled into the camera and said, "Hey, crafty friends," it felt personal. That's the trap of online intimacy. It creates emotional bonds where none truly exist. And when that bond is betrayed, the fallout is more than disappointment. It's disillusionment. Fans who once saw Booth as a beacon of positivity now have to reconcile that image with the reality of the charges. For some, it's easier to deny, to believe it's a small misunderstanding. For the evidence, maybe it's wrong. For others, it's pure rage. The whiplash from wholesome to horrifying is too much to process. Meanwhile, for law enforcement, the case is straightforward. CSAM investigations operate on a pipeline that's remarkably efficient. Platforms like Kik, Discord, Google, and Dropbox are legally required to report when they detect abusive content. Those reports go to NCMEC. From there, task force and match IP addresses to subscribers and secure warrants. It's a digital paper trail that doesn't fade. And once the evidence crosses a certain threshold, it becomes nearly impossible to walk it back. In Booth's case, that threshold appears to have been crossed. But again, innocent until proven guilty. According to reports, he shared files multiple times. Distribution, not mere possession, is the heart of the case. That distinction will define everything moving forward. Distribution implies agency. It implies participation in the ecosystem of abuse, not just voyeurism, but contribution. It's a difference between being a consumer of criminal content and a distributor of it. The law treats that difference severely because each act of sharing re-victimizes the children in those images. When this goes before a grand jury, and it soon will, prosecutors will present the digital trail, the Kik logs, the IP data, the seized devices, and any corroborating forensic evidence. If indicted, Booth will move into circuit court and face formal arraignment on multiple felonies. From there, he'll have two options: take a plea deal or go to trial. Plea deals in cases like this are often negotiated to spare the court and the victims a spectacle of a full trial, but even a plea would mean years, possibly decades, of incarceration, followed by mandatory offender registration. The damage to his life and reputation is already irreversible. What's fascinating and disturbing about this story is how it reveals the fragility of the influencer ecosystem. Platforms like YouTube and Facebook profit off creators who project positivity, and there's plenty of good ones. They build entire revenue models around those personalities. Booth's videos were monetized. He sold merch. He was, for all intents and purposes, a small business powered by trust. When an influencer like that is charged with a crime of this magnitude, it sends shockwaves through the entire system. Sponsors vanish. Collaborations dissolve. Platforms quietly scrub the content to avoid backlash. And in Booth's case, his YouTube channel allegedly is already down. Years of that work all erased overnight. It's not censorship, that's self-preservation, because no company wants to explain why they're still monetizing someone accused of distributing this type of material. There's also the cultural ripple effect. Parents who once let their kids watch DIY creators are now asking harder questions. Can we trust anyone online? Should platforms do background checks? Should family-friendly channels be vetted differently? It's a conversation the tech world has been avoiding for years because it exposes a flaw at the heart of the influencer culture, that the barrier to entry is pretty much zero and the background screening is pretty much non-existent. Booth didn't have to pass a test to reach hundreds of thousands of people. He just had to be likable, and he was, until he wasn't. But that's the world we live in now. If you zoom out, this case isn't unique. The internet has a pattern of manufacturing these perfect digital idols, people who seem untouchable until the mask slips. We've seen it with YouTubers, teachers, youth pastors, streamers, actors. It's just another platform. They've always been there. Just find new places to go. Anyone who learns how to package themselves for mass approval. The formula is simple. Seem safe, sound positive, stay accessible. And once the audience is hooked, it stops questioning who you are off camera. For all the horror of this story, the most important part may be the wake-up call that it delivers. The internet doesn't vet its heroes. Audiences do. And audiences are often bad at it because we want to believe that people we follow are who they pretend to be. We mistake personality for character. But how do you know? There's no parent that would have called this guy out. There's no child that would have seen this and said, Mom, there's something off here. It's another platform and another place where we as people need to be vigilant. In the courtroom, none of that matters. What matters is evidence. Booth's defense will likely center on procedural arguments. Was the search legal? Was the identification accurate? Was their intent? But digital evidence doesn't lie. If those files are found on his devices and if the forensic metadata proves he sent them, the case is over. The sentencing guidelines in Kentucky are harsh for a reason. The law doesn't care if you're famous, if you've never been arrested before, or if your online persona was squeaky clean. If you're found guilty of distributing CSAM, you serve time, period. For the community, there's another layer of betrayal. Booth wasn't some anonymous user hiding behind a dark profile. He was a neighbor, a recognizable face, a brand ambassador for good vibes only. His arrest forced people in his orbit, from neighbors to his viewers, to confront the possibility that evil doesn't always wear horns. Sometimes it wears a smile and says, let's make something beautiful together. Maybe that's the most haunting part of this case. That duality. The man who made a living helping people create, accused of consuming and sharing the worst kind of destruction. Creation and exploitation coexisting in the same person. When Booth stands before the grand jury, it won't be about public perception anymore. It'll be about evidence, digital traces, file paths, timestamps, storage logs, cold data, stripping away the last shred of persona. And for everyone watching from the outside, the fans, the parents, the community, it's a reminder of how thin the line is between the curated self and the hidden one. The influencer world thrives on image, but image isn't identity. And when reality catches up, it doesn't care how good your lighting setup is. Michael David Booth is presumed innocent until proven guilty, but if the allegations are true, then his brand wasn't built on creativity, it was built on concealment. Every video, every friendly post, every crafted smile was part of a performance designed to hide a darkness that no glitter or glue could cover. The internet loves to build heroes. It's time to get better at recognizing when those heroes are hollow. And that's the uncomfortable truth of this story. Not just that one man fell, but an entire system helped him climb unchecked until the crash was loud enough for everyone to hear. Because the story of Mr. Crafty Pants isn't just about one man's alleged crimes. It's about the illusion that safe context or content exists. It's about the fragility of trust in the digital age. It's about the price we pay for confusing relatability with morality. And when the lights come up in that Kentucky courtroom, no sponsors and no followers and no crafts. The man who once called himself Mr. Crafty Pants will face the one audience that doesn't care how well he plays the part. How do you tell, though? Some people have tells, without a doubt. Some don't. I'm not familiar with Mr. Crafty Pants. I'm going to guess if I watched his videos, I probably wouldn't be necessarily guessing he was doing this. I can't blame anybody who watched him. But that's a scary thing. That is a scary thing as a parent, as a consumer of content, is you don't know what's going on behind the curtain with some people. And I'm assuming it never really became part of his content. Otherwise, I would imagine they would have gone at him a little bit sooner. But it was hidden. I think it further erodes our trust in humanity more than anything else. Whether they're online, whether they're in your church, whether in a classroom, whether they're wherever they may be. They hide among us and they hide well. And that's the scariest part of all. We can get mad. We can try to blame the platform. We can try to blame this. Who do you blame? At the end of the day, it's evil. It's soul rippers living amongst us. Sometimes there's signs, sometimes there's not. We have to at least learn to start acting on the signs, though. Give me your thoughts in the comments section. On YouTube, search Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski. We'll talk again real.
Want more on this case and others? Then press subscribe now and don't miss a moment of true crime coverage from Tony Brueski and the Hidden Killers podcast.